while Legend Tomorrow continues to impress with a switch in perspective that truly changes up everything. Hey guys, here on for Legends Tomorrow, Season 2, Episode 10, The Legion of Doom, and guys, I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. As you guys know, I absolutely loved last week's episode, just because of how zany and how weird and just downright ridiculous of an episode was, but that it didn't take itself too seriously at all. It had fun with itself, it just was a fun, really entertaining episode, and that's the kind of stuff we need from this show, which was my initial fear going into this episode, because what seems to happen with Legends Tomorrow is that this show has a tendency to have, a hidden gem, and then they go back to their average, everyday, mundane type show. And I'm not saying that the show's bad. I think this season has been honestly pretty great. They've done a pretty good job of knowing when to use the characters and knowing what to do with them. But the show definitely does have a tendency of, going too dark or going too silly. And believe it or not, guys, surprisingly, this was another incredible episode. I know, I'm shocked myself, but this was another great episode. Why? Because once again, the show didn't take itself too seriously. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I mean, when was the last time there were two back-to-back great episodes of Legends Tomorrow? This is definitely the first time that's happened, and that's not a bad thing at all. This episode in general is really different from the other episodes because it doesn't really focus on the Legends as much as you think. It actually focuses more on the Legion of Doom. Right off the bat, we have a switch in perspective with Damien Dark doing the recap part of the episode, which was really cool to see. I really did enjoy that. But let's just get into this episode because this was an episode where, yes, we did learn a lot, but it was more of us getting to see these three characters interact, and we start off in Star City 8 months ago, and I really like this because I remember back in the, crossover that they did, they were gonna, explain to us how Malcolm got there, and they were gonna find Malcolm, basically, but we never got to see that, so we finally get to see that here, where he's watching a news report about Arrow killing Dark. He turns off the TV, pours himself a drink, and Thawne speeds in with Dark, and Eobard says that Malcolm has fallen on hard on times, and explains that he's from the future, because things have not really gone well for Malcolm, obviously. So he asks if Malcolm wants to undo his own present, and says that they can use something much better than time travel. So now we kind of know why they're doing this. They're not just doing this because they're supervillains. They're doing this so they can try to rewrite their story, so they can, end up more victorious and just have a better life than they end up having, which that in itself is very interesting. So I really do like the way it was done. It perfectly gets us to understand why the Legion of Doom would do something like this, and by doing that, it makes them as a group a lot more menacing and honestly kind of rootable. You can see where they're coming from. You can see why they're doing this kind of thing. Obviously, you're rooting for the Legends, but you can understand why the Legion of Doom would do this sort of thing, and they really did do an incredible job with setting up, why they would do this and how they work as a team. But there's a lot more going on with them that was just a lot of fun to watch. So we cut to the present day where we see Malcolm and Dark rejoin. Thawne tells him that Phil isn't fully in possession of his memories, and he can't tell them where the spear is, because once again, he thinks his name is Phil. He doesn't know anything about the spear, and Thawne complains that they lost the medallion, and when Malcolm points out that Thawne keeps ducking out on them, Thawne speeds over, grabs Malcolm by the throat, and advises him to keep it to himself. Malcolm asks if he's supposed to be afraid of Thawne, and points out that if Thawne kills him, then he won't get what he wants, and he says that they can get the information from Rip via hypnosis, and Thawne tells him to be quick about it. So Dark wonders what happens if the Legends find the spear before they do, because they haven't really thought that scenario happening, and Thawne basically says that the workings of the medallion are lost to history, and they'll have trouble unlocking its secrets, that, it's not going to work out for the Legends. And I gotta say, one of the best parts of this episode is just seeing these three interact. It's hilarious, honestly. I mean, these three bounce off each other so well. They have such great chemistry, but you honestly can see where they're coming from. So we then go to the Wave Rider. Mick is complaining that his teammates are idiots, and he suggests that they trade the medallion for Rip, and Amaya points out that their priority has to be identifying Thawne. So Sarah agrees that they should unlock the medallion, and Stein says that he has a colleague in Central City that can help them. So when they set course for Central City, Sarah tells the team to try and identify Thawne, because as we know they have a speedster on board, and that, a speedster is a member of the Legion of Doom. They don't, however, know what his name is, or who he is, or his origin, or anything like that. They've known all season that there's been a speedster on board, so I like that they don't know. It keeps us guessing. It keeps this, well, not us, but it keeps them guessing. It keeps a mystery going on. I do like the way the show has done that. Last season, they would have known everything by now, and I like the way the show is taking it slow here. I'm very surprised they did that, but I was happy to see that. So Malcolm in return says that Rip's memories are gone, so hypnosis is useless, and Dark is happy to continue with torture, and an exasperated Thawne then speeds off, and back in Rip's chamber, Dark sharpens his knife, admits that he doesn't like the situation. He's unhappy that Thawne is treating him like a henchman when they all end up dead. I mean, they're all gonna end up dead at some point, so Dark urges Rip and tells him that he needs Rip's cooperation to end Thawne's threats, and Rip insists that he doesn't know anything, but Dark says that he can't take his word and asks which eye he should take first. So later, Dark then shows Thawne and Malcolm Rip's tooth that he pulled out. There's a barcode on it, and Dark says that it's an account information for a secret deposit box in Switzerland. And I love how Dark said that it wasn't that big of a deal he pulled his tooth. Just some great banter there. He figures that the box holds the rest of the spear, and it was last accessed in January 2025. So Thawne's wrist bracelet goes off. He tells Dark and Malcolm to go to 2025 and secure the spear, and then speeds off. So we now have our plot, which is relatively simple, and that's something I really like about this episode, is that it really does keep it simple, and this episode shows that when you keep things simple, the show it benefits a lot more from that. So in 2017, which I was surprised to see that they stayed in 2017 this episode, but yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of crazy time travel here, which this might be one of the first times, but I was surprised too, but I actually thought it worked really well for the show. We see Stein and Jax go to Jitters. Stein suggests that Jax go back to Wave Rider, and Lily comes in, who the last time we saw Lily, of course, was the crossover. We did not see her a ton in the mid-season finale, but I really like this character. I like that we're seeing more of her. I think it gives Stein this really sympathetic storyline. I like the direction we've been going with this, pretty much. I really do like Lily as a character, and, I think they've just done a very good job with it. So, they suggest that Lily help them with their project. Stein shows her the medallion. She used the device to confirm that it's giving off ionic radiation, and she feeds it a radiation pulse, and it generates map coordinates. So, Stein and Jackson take Lily to Wave Rider, and Stein claims that he kept his private life private, and Sarah says that she knows all about it, because everyone else, they have no idea who she is or where she's come from, but of course, Sarah, knows everything about it, and I do like that Sarah is realizing that, this isn't really her battle to fight. Like, she's told, she's suggested to Rip many times that, he's gonna have to destroy her, and that they can't have her on board, but it's just, she's just kind of wasting her breath. She's already told him, like, maybe 5 or 6 times. It's not really gonna do, much good if she just reiterates how she already feels. So I do like the way that Sarah did keep her mouth shut here, because I did think there was a lot of hypocrisy with what she was telling him in the mid-season finale, because sure, I mean, creating an aberration is something that she's not okay with, but as we know, she was willing to undo things like kill Dark so that way she could save Laurel, and it just, those two things don't really go together. So I do like the way they didn't really have her say anything, because there's a lot of hypocrisy there, and I'm glad that they didn't bring that up. So Dark goes to the armory, tells Malcolm they can storm into the bank and take the box, and Malcolm objects, saying that they can use Phil to get the box. So Dark agrees, but warns that if the plan fails, then Malcolm, with Dark, amused, Malcolm tells Dark that he doesn't find him threatening, and holds a knife behind his back, and this was just so fun to watch, seeing these two go back and forth, especially with Dark being like, well, at least I still have a hand, because as we know, Oliver cuts off his hand, and Malcolm saying, well, at least I'm not dead. I just love the banter between these two, because it's just hilarious. I mean, just seeing these two go at each other. They had interaction, obviously, in Arrow, but it was a lot more like, Dark was trying to, infiltrate information out of Malcolm, or he was trying to, to get him on his side. Now that these two are working together, it's a lot more fun to watch, and that's something that I didn't really feel we get a lot, and I really do love that the show is just having fun with this. It shows that we don't need these, extremely threatening villains. That's something that Season 1 did way too much, and Season 2 is realizing that they can just have fun with it, and I like the way they did that here. It's one of the most fun parts of the entire episode, is just seeing these two go at it. It's pretty hilarious to watch, and definitely is probably one of my favorite villain moments the show has done so far. So on Wave Rider, Sarah tells the team that Lily is a time aberration. She doesn't waste her time. She tells them very quickly because, she wants them to know what's going on. So now Stein showing her Wave Rider could cause more aberrations, and Stein figures that Gideon would have detected any temporal issues, and Jax says that Lily is going to hook up the medallion to Gideon. So Stein asks them not to reveal to Lily as she's an aberration, and meanwhile the team confirms that every speedster associated with Flash is believed dead. So Sarah says that they'll keep working on it while Stein and Lily work with the medallion. So Malcolm then has Phil put on a suit, wonders out loud if Thawne will kill them. He then tells Phil they're both dealing with unstable individuals and tells Phil to do as ordered. So Malcolm and Dark then take the time spirit to Zurich 2025. They haven't put on an earbud so that they can monitor him. They then tell him to access the box and bring the contents to them. Phil goes in, asks the receptionist for the box, and Dark and Malcolm wait. Malcolm figures that Thawne is hiding something, that there's a reason why, he's left them there. They don't really know what's going on, but Dark figures that Malcolm is trying to turn him against Thawne, and that's exactly what's actually going on. But Malcolm warns that their survival depends on it. He really feels that only one of them are going to survive her, and only one of them is actually going to, secure, Thawne's trust. The other one's just going to end up, being like a watch, just watching. The other one's going to be doing all the working, and I thought that was interesting to see. Again, seeing these two go back and forth was just a lot of fun to watch, and they did a really good job with that. But in the study, Nate, Sarah, and Amaya, who, I'm not going to lie, Nate didn't have a ton to do in this episode, and normally I'd be upset with that because, as you guys know, Nate is slowly becoming my favorite character on the show. I instantly smile when he's on. Just the dude who plays him is just so charismatic, and he does such a great job, and he's just one of those actors that, begs you to watch. He does such a great job with that. I really do love, Nick Zano as the character, but it shows how great the episode is when even when Nate's not in it, I'm still genuinely entertained. I still love this episode. And there still are some great Nate moments, don't get me wrong. It's just we don't have the amount of, Nate's nerd Nate, stuff that we had last week, which, some of my favorite stuff in the show. So in the study, Nate, Sarah, and Amaya are going over the historical files to try to work out who Thawne is, and they wonder what Thawne is trying to change. So Sarah figures that he's trying to fix something, and that's really what's going on, which, yeah, that's kind of true. The receptionist takes Malcolm to the vault, tells him to submit a retinal scan, and Malcolm tells Rip what it is. Rip does so. Voice ID is next, and Rip has no idea what the access code is. So Malcolm tells Phil to leave, but Dark tells him to stay and points out that Malcolm's plan failed. And as the receptionist starts to call security, Malcolm then kills him, and Dark prepares to kill Phil. The alarms go off. Malcolm says that Phil is more useful, tells Dark to deal with the guards. The guards come in, the two assassins take them out, and they grab Rip and walk out. So I do like the way these villains are not exactly on top of things. In fact, they're not really that great at all. Even though, Thawne put them in charge, you can see that they're really not doing that great. They don't really know what they're doing, and I just like seeing that they're not always on top of things. Something that was annoying in Season 1, Vandal Savage always won everything, and I love it. This is the complete opposite of this season, that these villains are not really on top of things at all. They're too distracted with arguing, and because that they can't really get the mission done that, they're supposed to do. So, which I think is a very interesting take, from last year. It's a really good way of, again, playing to the show's strengths, and they're doing a very good job with that. So Ray then works with Lily so that Gideon can access the medallion's data, and I'm not going to lie, these two worked really well together. I like seeing Ray and Lily admits that they can override Gideon. Ray activates the medallion. Gideon's projection disappears briefly, and the AI says she's producing the output, so Ray and Lily high-five each other. Ray gets a bottle of champagne. Mick then comes in to get a beer, and they share a toast. When Ray explains about the synthetic food, Mick straight up tells her that she's a fake person. There's the one thing that Stein said not to tell her, he tells her, and Lily Lily wonders why everyone's been looking at her strangely. Mick tells Lily that she's a time aberration, and, Lily has no idea what he's talking about. She doesn't know what a time aberration is or anything. So once he leaves, Lily asks Ray to explain, and he says that she should talk to Stein. Now, this could have been very cheesy, but they actually play it very emotional. It actually works because it's not too overtly emotional. The way it happened, obviously Mick would be the one to do this sort of thing. Mick is not just going to keep a secret. Mick is really doing it for her benefit. He wants her to know. I think he genuinely doesn't want to keep up this facade anymore, and I think he just wants Stein to tell her the truth. I really could see. I mean, obviously, this wasn't probably the best thing to do, but I can totally see where he was coming from when telling her that. So back in their lair, Dark and Malcolm tie up Phil, and Dark and Malcolm argue about who is to blame, and Malcolm says that they should settle disputes the same way they do in the League, by combats. And again, I thought that was definitely very funny, the way they're distracting themselves. So Lily confronts Lily confronts Stein and demands to know what a time aberration is, and again, could have been very cheesy, but this is a very well done scene. These two actors have very good chemistry together, and you genuinely do feel bad for Lily, but at the same time, you can understand why Stein did this, and he explains the basics. Lily realized that she is one. Stein admits that when they first met, he didn't know that she existed, and Stein explains what happened, finds the whole thing fascinating, but Lily tells him it's a nightmare. I mean, she now knows that all these memories that she had might not have actually happened, and it's genuinely a very scary thing to think about. That, imagine if you had all these great memories with your father, and you looked at him, and you remembered all these great things, you're telling him all these great times, when in reality, none of them actually happened. Those were just things that were plugged into your brain to make you think that you're real. And she figures that Stein didn't originally want kids, but now he has her. So she really just feels like she was second choice, and it's understandable, really. Again, they did a really good job with not over-dramatizing this, and I definitely really did like that. So Malcolm and Dark are then fighting with swords. They manage to disarm each other and draw knives. Phil finally tells him to stop. I like the way that Phil is actually the mediator here, and he says that Thawne wants his underlings to fight among themselves. So Malcolm agrees, and even Dark is forced to admit that Rip has a point. So Dark is intrigued by the idea of two former members of the League going up against a speedster, and basically realized that they shouldn't be fighting against each other. They should be fighting against Thawne, because clearly Thawne, there's a reason why he's not there, and again, just adds a lot of fun to what could have been a lot more serious, and they do a great job with just having a lot of fun with this. So Jackson finds Stein sitting alone in his quarters after sensing that Stein is drinking. Stein finally admits he made a terrible mistake by bringing Lily aboard Wave Rider, and I really did love the scene. Victor Garbage did a really good job with getting us to, one, sympathize with Stein, but also kind of understand, where he's coming from. Not just sympathize with him, but understand, get why he would do this sort of thing, and not make him look like this terrible person, not make him look like a hypocrite in this scene. You can genuinely understand why he did this, and Jax tells him to tell her that he loves her, and he says that he didn't have children the first time because he was afraid he'd do the same type of thing his father, that his father did. As we know, his father was very abusive, he neglected him a lot, he just didn't have a great childhood, and that's the reason why he didn't want to have children. However, being on the Wave Rider has really changed his perspective on that. He realized that, he had a lot more chances to do that kind of thing, and he just kind of took it, and Jax tells him that changing history is what they do, and I just really did love this scene here, It really to show how far Jax and Stein have come. We remember back in episode 1 when Stein essentially drug Jax to get on board. These two have come a long way, and I think this is probably one of their best scenes yet. It might be my favorite scene from these two. They did an incredible job with showing the bond they had, but also what I love the most is that, Jax is not upset with Stein. He just needs an explanation. He actually does sympathize with him in this, and I was very surprised to see that, but I really did like the way the show did that. Really good stuff there. So Sarah and the others still work on what Thawne's theory is, and Nate finally realizes that Thawne is a temporal aberration. Just as Stein comes in, erupts to ask if they've seen Lily, and undeterred, Nate suggests that Thawne somehow erased himself from history, which is why they can't find any records of him. So Stein realizes that they're talking about Eobard Thawne, and explains that Thawne committed suicide to eliminate Eobard's timeline. However, Thawne was predicted by the Speed Force. So basically, I like the way that Stein has all this information. The fact that we've seen Stein the Flash really does help here, and I definitely like that. So in 2025, Malcolm and Dark then break into the bank after hours. They kill the guards, and Malcolm then enters the bank's manager's security override so they can enter the vault. Phil manages to break his bond and starts to escape. Thawne then arrives, ties him back down. Rip says that Stein and Dark left him there, so he quickly says that he went to the bank and begs Eobard to let him go. So Thawne speeds off without a response, and again, they don't really seem to care. So Malcolm and Dark then get the box, finds an electronic disc. Thawne speeds in, grabs it, explains it's a mnemonic archive and contains Rip's memories. So he's going to try to get Rip's memories back. So Nate figures that Thawne is running from time. He has to keep moving to avoid his own non-existence, and basically, he's there to make himself relevant, to make sure that he doesn't fade out. And Stein figures that the only way to prove it is to trap Thawne in one place and see what happens. So I like the way they were able to get all this information. You would think that this would be, a little too easy for them to do, but no. I mean, it's taken them so long to figure out that this is Eobard Thawne. It's a very rewarding for them to finally realize, in episode 11, that holy shit, this is Eobard Thawne, and now they know to stop it. It really does show that the Legends are a lot more on top of things this year, and I definitely really did like this, especially more than the Legion of Doom, who we see really is not on top of things at all. So Malcolm then locks the vault door, says that they're renegotiating their partnership, and Thawne tells them that if they don't open the door, he'll just kill them. So Malcolm points out that he's the only one who knows the code to open the door. Dark sides with Malcolm, curious to see how it plays out. They ask why Thawne needed their help to enter the vault. Thawne's bracelet goes off. He insists that they don't have time for discussion. The speedster finally admits he needs them as much as they need him. So if they don't open the door, then it will kill him. And we don't know what it is, but Thawne tells them that something pursued him after he escaped captivity. He warns that whatever is hunting him is far worse than a time wraith. It can sense the speed force, and it's trying to kill him. So that's the actual reason why he's gone. That there's actually this time wraith after him, and something roars outside the vault. Thawne says that they're all equally dead, and Malcolm and Dark then says they'll get Eobard out as long as he stops treating them as lackeys, because up till now, that's really all he's done. So he agrees, sure, that they can't succeed, and Malcolm tells Thawne to stop running. So a few minutes later, he walks out of the bank acting as bait, and the creature, which is a decaying Flash-like figure, speeds up. Malcolm tells Thawne that as long as he stands still, he's safe, and the creature, which he called Black Flash, which is essentially the reincarnation of Zoom. As we know, Zoom, again, was kind of obliterated from existence, but this is what Zoom has been left as, which is the Black Flash, and he speeds around Thawne, but can't sense him even when it's inches away from him, and this was a genuinely creepy scene. Like, I genuinely felt suspense in this scene. It was really well done, I have to say. The show doesn't do a great job with action sometimes, but this was a really great example of it, and Malcolm and Dark then attack it. Thawne shoves it into the vault, locks the creature in. The speedster says they have to go, admits that they're now partners, and basically, the speedster's going to come after them. So we now know why Thawne has actually recruited them, why Thawne actually left. He's been trying to get away from the speedster, and that adds so many layers to an already great story. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. So on Rave Rider, Gideon tells Lily that Stein is ordered to prevent Lily from leaving the ship. So Stein comes in and says she's truly his daughter. He assures Lily that she's not a mistake and apologizes for not telling her the truth sooner. Because obviously, he's a bit upset about that. He should have told her the truth, and Stein admits that he didn't want children. But in his travels, he's learned that time gives them what they need, and he needed Lily in his life. He's grown to love her like a daughter. At first, he kind of resented her, but now he really does love her. And Lily says she doesn't want any more secrets between them. Stein explains that he's Firestorm. She assumes that he's joking and says that she should be getting home, which is kind of sad because eventually I think she is going to find out and it's not really going to end up well for her. But they say their goodbyes. Lily kisses Stein on the cheek, and it's just a really sweet moment. There's nothing too crazy about this scene. It's a nice moment between father and daughter, but it's very bittersweet because we don't know how much longer Lily's going to be on the show, and that's something that kind of does concern me, which I'll talk about. But back at their lair, Thawne explains he's adjusting some of Rip's memories before uploading it into his archive. He's going to do what he can to try to, get Rip back to the way he was. But we see it's not going to be easy because we cut to New Jersey, 1776 Christmas Day, where Rip, he's got his accent back. He's Rip Hunter again. He enters the tent of George Washington, fires a gun at him. Who knows what's going to happen there, but that is the way the episode ends. Really great stuff overall. Let's just get in this episode and what's going to happen from here. So, wow, guys, honestly, I'm shocked. I really can't believe that this episode was as great as it was. I was expecting a very average or formulaic episode. That's what I was expecting. I was expecting a formulaic, average episode that tried to develop the villains, but really didn't do a great job with it. And instead, we get the complete opposite. In fact, this episode wasn't even a Legends Tomorrow episode. It was a Legion of Doom episode in every way possible. Legends were there, but they were more to the side, which was really cool the way they did that. They didn't do that with Vandal Savage last year because there was nothing to show. I mean, we saw everything we need to see with him. These villains, on the other hand, have been beloved. You know, people, well, I don't know if people love Malcolm. I think people have really hated Malcolm since, season one. But this was easily the best Malcolm Merlin we've gotten, I think, since the early days of Arrow. I will definitely admit he was used way too much in seasons 3 and 4. But before then, this is the Malcolm that we want to see. Kind of the snarky, sarcastic, arrogant Malcolm. And then Dark, of course. Damien Dark is always great. Neil McDonough does such a good job as that character. And then Eobard Thawne, Matt Lesher. I remember last year on Flash, he was good, but he never really got to shine. And having him this season, it's really proving to his strengths. We really see how great he is as this character. And now that we know that Thawne is now being chased by something greater than even he can imagine, that really makes it that much more interesting. Now we know why Thawne is really doing this. He's not just assembling this team to assemble a team and try to pit them against each other. No, what he's really trying to do is recruit an army to get himself away from the Black Flash, who clearly wants to erase him, so only one of them can become relevant. And I think that storyline is a lot more interesting. And I'm hearing that the Black Flash is going to be on the Flash, it's going to be on Arrow, so this Black Flash is going to be there for a long time. It's not just a Legends thing, it's a Flash thing too, which that's something I'm definitely interested in. I don't know how the Flash is going to fit that in there, but that scene where, Thawne is, trying to get away from Black Flash, genuinely intimidating. I like the way that was done. It actually did kind of send chills down my spine, I have to say. They did a really good job with that scene. I definitely really did enjoy that. And, of course, watching Dark and Malcolm go back and forth, trying to figure out, who's the better villain and who is better for Thawne was just a lot of fun to watch. They did such a great job with that, because these are two people who we can tell don't like each other at all. They really want to be working together. They just kind of been forced to, and they don't really want that at all. So that was a lot of fun to watch. I definitely really enjoyed that conflict that they had here. It was just a lot of fun to see them bicker and the differences that they have. They had a lot of discrepancies throughout this episode, a lot of trivial fights, and I thought it was just a lot of fun to see. That's definitely something with Dark and Malcolm, is that they do get into a lot of unnecessary banter, and I really did enjoy that. It was just a lot of fun to see, and it really did add just a lot of great humor to this. They had fun with this episode. That's something the show is doing extremely well, is that it's having fun. It's not worried about, telling all this stuff that makes sense. In fact, half of the stuff doesn't really make sense. But this episode, again, they kept it simple. It wasn't too crazy or anything like that. It was simply about, finding out what the Legion of Doom's motivation is, and then the Legends trying to, figure out who Thawne really is. That's all this episode really was, but that doesn't mean it wasn't extremely well done, because it really was. And seeing the Legends in the episode as well also was very well done. Seeing them figure out who Thawne is and things like that. There's a lot of direction that can go. And now let's talk about Lily, though, because probably the most tragic thing about this episode, it is definitely sad that Lily found out she's a time aberration. I'm glad she found out, because it's out of the way. We don't have to have this whole season where we're just waiting for her to find out in the worst way possible. But now that she knows, the real question is, how long is Lily actually going to be on this show? Because it genuinely concerns me. I actually really do love Lily as a character. I think she provides a lot to the show. It gives Stein this amount of pathos that we don't get to see a ton from his character. And having Lily leave would be genuinely upsetting. I really don't want to see the character go. And again, this isn't a character that really has done a lot. She's only been in like 2 or 3 episodes. But because of how well they developed the storyline, I really don't want to see Lily leave. It's definitely going to be sad when that eventually happens. Because, let's face it, she's not going to be on the show forever. She's going to have to leave at some point, and her not believing Stein about being Firestorm is genuinely saddening to see, but they did a very good job with that storyline. I just hope that Sarah agrees and kind of keeps her mouth shut, because Stein, he needs to figure this out. This is his daughter. Well, it's his problem, his aberration, and he needs to figure out what he really wants to do here, which if we get our way, if he gets his way, hopefully we see Lily live through another season. I want to see Lily on the show. It's a different version of Stein than we haven't gotten before, and it's a lot more compelling than that of him and Clarissa. Not that I don't like him and Clarissa, but we haven't seen a ton of them on the show, and he talked about a great deal of her in season 1, but we didn't really get to see a ton of the relationship. Lily and Stein, however, is a completely different storyline entirely, and I really do love the direction that's going. And then the only thing to talk about is Rip, because seemingly Rip has his British accent back, but why has he been sent 70-76? It looks like he's going to try to kill George Washington. Who knows what's going to happen there? It looks like we're back to basics next week, but hopefully the fun doesn't stop. There's been so much fun in these past 2 episodes. I was shocked that we stayed in the present. We didn't really go anywhere. Well, the Legends stayed in the present. They didn't really go anywhere here. The Legion of Doom was the one who time traveled. That was definitely really cool to see. But overall, guys, I really did love this episode. The show continues to play to its strengths, and I am going to give Legends Tomorrow Season 2, Episode 10, The Legion of Doom, once again, the same grade I gave last week, a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. Once again, guys, this show is continuing to kill it. It's learning how to tell its story. It's learning it doesn't need to take itself too seriously. It can just have fun with itself. And when it has fun, it's a lot better of a show. And I'm hoping that fun continues to permeate throughout the rest of the season, because it really is strengthening the show in every way possible. But over, guys, my review Legends Tomorrow. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Did you like this episode? Did you like the way it focused on the villains? Where do you think Black Flash is going to go? All that kind of stuff. That's in my review. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for Series of Unfortunate Events, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.